Hi, I'm Jenna. I'm from Lincolnshire and I've got experience of long COVID. I caught COVID in September 2020. Before we were all entitled to our boosters and jabs, and also before even lateral flares existed. So it was still quite an unknown at that point. But when I caught it, it was a big surprise because I didn't actually have any of the symptoms listed on the NHS website.
My name's Carl. I'm from Boston in Lincolnshire. I suffered with long COVID start of November 2020. I'm still living the nightmare, you could say. And I'm just a normal man on the street who worked as a postman. I'm fit and healthy, bit of a man's man, like beer, like betting, like sport. And now I'm not working, almost housebound. So that's how COVID's affected me.
Hi, I am Amanda, but I prefer to be called Mandy. If I'm called Amanda, I know I'm in trouble. I'm Lincolnshire born and bred, so a yellow belly. I first contracted COVID in February 2021 and went on to be diagnosed in September, well, sort of March, April time. Afterwards, they thought I had continuing problems, which they put down to long COVID. And I actually ended up being off work with long COVID from September 21 until February this year. I've had health issues previously, but this was the only time I could actually say I was in fear. And it was that thought of being fearful of what is my life going to be like? Am I going to get worse? Am I actually going to recover? I don't think, and I hope in a way, because I think it's beneficial, that will never leave me.
Right, totally life-changing. I've gone from going to work, having an active life, family, brilliant friends. Yeah, they're all still there, but I've had the scary days of sort of having to say goodbye to my family, thinking that I wasn't going to come out of hospital, going in hospital 3 or 4 times, not being able to walk some days, not being able to breathe, which is the scariest thing in the world. So it's a total life change from being what I'd call normal to being housebound. A non-active life now, sort of trying to adapt to the new life of not working, of not being able to do things for myself sometimes, of not being able to even walk or pick up the phone. You know, it's just a total life change.
So I went for the COVID test on the Sunday morning, and it was the time when everyone was having COVID tests, so the wait was really long for results. So I stayed at home with my children for the next couple of days waiting for my results, and I couldn't understand how I was incapable of doing anything really that was normal functioning. And I was desperately trying to go back to work, telling people I'll be back tomorrow. As soon as my results in, I'll be back. But I couldn't even stand up, if I'm honest. My young daughter at the time was doing a lot of things for me. Had horrendous pain across my stomach that was very, very hard to describe. And it just seemed to escalate. And actually, when I got the result of having COVID, I was relieved.
Not being able to walk properly. So now I walk, I hope nobody takes this the wrong way, I walk like a 90-year-old. I can only walk for 5 minutes, and in 5 minutes I can do 200 metres. So that tells you the sort of speed I travel at, and after that my legs don't go any further, and I don't know why, and nobody knows why. So it's just, that's how it's affected me. Most of my other symptoms disappeared, but the walking is still there, and my arm sometimes doesn't work, I have shakes. So on the physical side, it's been a total shock from walking 50 miles plus a week to being able to walk less than 200 metres a day is just life-changing.
The first thing that comes to mind was the fatigue. And you say the word fatigue rather than tiredness, but actually there's been nothing like it. It was never ending. It didn't seem to respond to how much strength you sleep you had, how much you tried to rest, tried to pace. There was an awful lot of information out about pacing, but it just seemed, and this is my experience, it just seems that my previous strategies didn't work. So my own personal toolkit was out the window. but also, while some of the advice that I did get from professionals helped, they didn't help quick enough for me, and the fatigue was just enduring. It seemed to be relentless. And then alongside with the fatigue was the breathlessness, which as an asthmatic I'm used to, but it was a different type of breathlessness. So again, that is quite fearful.
For me, it was the fact that my head felt like it was attached to somebody else's body. My mind, my brain, everything was telling me I had to do everything I would normally do. But everything from the neck down just didn't seem to work anymore. So doing anything would cause me to just, I could feel, it's hard to describe, but it felt like someone was pressing on me, like pressure all the time, like pushing me down, like weighing me down. Like you were walking through treacle is how I'd best describe it. That my brain would like, well, go on then, get up and do that. And my body would go, you've got to be kidding me. You want to walk to the toilet, which is 3 steps away? No way. And I just kept getting this horrendous pain in my diaphragm area. There wasn't necessarily stomach ache or, and then because I had this pain so badly, it made me be sick because the pain just didn't seem to go away. And it just was like I was being crushed underneath the weight of my own body. But my head was off doing its normal life, thinking its normal thoughts. And it wasn't until I learned about the illness that I realised that my mind working in the overdrive that it was working, wanting to fix everything, wanting to do everything as normal, that I was making myself worse. I needed to take a pause and go, no, we need downtime. That means mind downtime as well. And that's what I think was my biggest stumbling block, is the fact that my mind continued to be active and my body couldn't be.
I think the biggest thing, and actually even just thinking about it now, still I can feel the emotions welling up, is I didn't recognise me. I didn't recognise me at all. This wasn't the person I'd been for 50 plus years. This isn't the person that I'd built my life on. And not only did I not recognise me, I didn't like me. I didn't like this me at all. And I think then, you know, that recognition, you didn't know where to go with that, because that was a complete new emotion to me. And as I say, I still find it quite painful to think about that. But I think, yes, I've moved on an awful long way since that. And it can feel very isolating as well when you feel like that. And I think especially with long COVID, for a lot of people, if you just look at somebody, they don't look too unwell. And that's the same as in the mirror. I would look in the morning in the mirror and thinking, today is going to be a good day. I am determined it's going to be a good day. And my body just wasn't listening to me. And that sense of frustration was actually emotionally incredibly draining.
Well, it's the elephant in the room, the loneliness. I've got a supportive family, I've got a supportive friends network, but nobody seems to understand. And you can't blame them that they don't understand, because this is new, but nobody understands what I'm going through. It feels like it's all in your head sometimes, because your symptoms don't add up. One day my legs work, the next day they don't. Some days I shake, some days I don't. Things evolve, seem to evolve every day, new symptoms. So mentally it's difficult because of the loneliness. It's difficult to explain really, but being alone, even though you're not, I know my family love me and my friends love me, I just feel that they don't understand, and it's my lonely fight. So it's me who's got to fight. You know, when I go to the hospital or the doctors and they do a test and they say, no, everything's fine. Right, okay, so there's nothing wrong there. So the mental side is, you could easily think I'm making this all up, but my body tells me I'm not, you know, I can't do things, and it's, you know, very annoying, frustrating, boring. But mentally, if I wasn't so positive, I can understand how people could take a turn for the worst. And it's because you feel alone.
For me, it was the fact that I wasn't being the mum to my 2 children that I should be, because I was just incapable of looking after them myself. I had to rely on my parents. My husband had recently started his own business, so him not going to work was not an option. And I just couldn't do it. So I had to rely on my parents being here as soon as my husband was going to work, and basically being here and almost until he got home from work. I remember one particular day where they said, "Are you okay for us to go?" And I was like, yeah, I'll be fine. All I have to do is put the kids to bed. That's all I had to do, was literally, get up the stairs. They were capable of getting in bed, having a quick story. Well, I didn't make it to the top of the stairs. I was in a heap on top of the stairs on the floor, and looking at my 6-year-old at the time, who was begging for my phone to ring an ambulance and call for help, because we had to teach her that's what she had to do, it destroyed me, because she begged me within an inch of my life that she could phone for help, and I wouldn't let her. I just had to ask my children to help me get to bed, and then say to them, please go and get in bed and close your eyes and go to sleep. Daddy will be home soon. And at that point I went, this is not right.
I think at the very start, there was quite a void of information. The information seemed to be very driven by the media, and it seemed to be very sensationalized. We know it was a pandemic and it was unprecedented times, but obviously the information that got the headlines is probably not the most accurate. So I think a more joined up way of thinking of, actually, even if we haven't got much information, having that lines of communication would have been, because it can feel very isolating, and I think that sense of isolation has been sort of overriding throughout long COVID.
I think support is the biggest thing, and I think that's not just for me, I think that's for my family as well. It's different now, but I got took into hospital and said goodbye to my family at the doorstep, because they couldn't come to hospital and they didn't know what was going on. So that has changed a bit. But as we've gone on, luckily I had some support after. It took 14 months, well, a year, just over a year, to get some support. But my treatment was not the greatest. GPs didn't understand, they had no education. If you went online to look at anything, you were going to die. So Dr. Google was not the answer. And I think hopefully what you're doing is going to help people understand that they're not alone, because I thought for ages that I was the only one suffering with this and this, and my symptoms were different to everybody else.
So I think the biggest thing we've always talked about is obviously having someone to speak to who knows what you're talking about. And that's the part that we've been desperate to set up and make sure is there, because that is what I felt made the difference to me. Someone who understood when I said about this weird pain or this weird sensation I've now got in my nose that I didn't understand. Someone else went, yeah, I've had that. I know what that is. And you go, okay, great, brilliant. That's normal then.
There's Lindsay, a lady called Lindsay Woodman's been a great help to me. And it was really strange because she's got me doing things that I'm a bloke, I wouldn't do. So I do lots of, if you like, weird exercises and breathing. And also the thing with that is it got me into a group of people suffering the same. Yeah, and I realised then that everybody had different levels of ailment of it, but it actually got me sort of understanding what was going on in my body and talking to other people, and that can never be underestimated with this, I don't think, because it sort of got rid of my loneliness a bit, because it was sort of like, oh right, oh yeah, they've got this and this, yeah, I've got that, and you sort of resonated with other people's afflictions, their issues, and sort of, oh yeah, you know, so that was massive for me, because I'd gone 14 months without speaking to anybody or knowing anything apart from doing online research, which wasn't great, to actually speaking to people and and seeing human beings and sort of getting a little bit of knowledge. So yeah, that was an amazing help, to be honest.
The biggest driver and the biggest change for me was working with chronic fatigue service, working with Lindsay, because one thing she'd done the first time I met her, it was a long phone conversation for about an hour online. She gave me the permission to be ill. She sat there and went, yeah, you're really unwell now and you're allowed to be. And honestly, I think that was my turning point, because I broke down and went, oh, thank goodness, I'm allowed to be ill now. And it wasn't until I hit the bottom first that I could go back up. Actually working through all the little things that had been affecting my life, starting with sleep, because I had none. I was tired all the time, but yet was having very, very little quality deep sleep. So Lindsay helped me fix that. And then we worked through every single thing in turn, all the way up to nutrition being one of the, final points. But slowly but surely drip feeding this information. Not all at once, because I am a person who would have gone from 0 to 100 within 3 days. And she sussed me out straight away. And she said, no way, Jose, I've got the reins on you. This is what we're doing first, and you're not allowed to do anything else. And I needed somebody to say that. And without that, it wouldn't have worked for me.
Probably my GP. It's been a waste of time, really. I'll ring the GP and it's basically the secretary now says, oh, you just need a sick note. So they don't ring you back. I even rung the GP once to say that I'd been in hospital, because I got rushed into hospital over the weekend, and I rung the GP to say, I've had food problems and this, that and the other, and the secretary actually said the GP doesn't want to speak to you anymore. You've been off for long enough now, you should be able to go back to work, so they're giving you a back to work note. And I was ringing to say that I'd collapsed and I was going in hospital, so that sort of gives you a feeling of how annoyed's probably not a strong enough word, with my GP.
I think on a practical side, what delayed the recovery was the delay in the services. But I understand that services were overwhelmed, that actually these services previously didn't exist. So it was a monumentum. It's probably the biggest since the history of actually the NHS being devised. But I think the conflicting information that was out there had to be very mindful of what information you got. I went through a stage where I was quite insatiable in the information I was trying to find. I was researching everything, looking everything up, and just trying to get that knowledge.
Please listen to the patient. This is not a tick box illness. They are not going to come to you with a perfect fit like the NHS originally was with COVID. You're going to have a temperature, you're going to have loss of taste and smell, you're going to have a cough. I didn't. Throughout the whole of my illness, have I any of those things? I did have a funny smell, but that was well into it. And with long COVID, it's the same. Not everyone is going to have the same list of things that are the biggest concern to them. I still thank myself lucky that I didn't have brain fog. I know a lot of people who do, and it's massively affecting their daily life. From simple things to, I can't remember what the item's called, because that part of my brain is just not working properly. So please don't fill it. There's going to be a typical tick list. They're not going to fill it. You need to listen to what they need and what they're telling you. And it may not be the perfect fit for that service, but maybe, just maybe, another service that can be. The one thing I would say about hope is you do lose it. When you're ill, you do lose sight of any hope or any, I'll do this soon, because you think I won't be able to do anything soon. But what I would like to say to people is there is hope.